Hey there, it's Katie Grant with glamgirlglow.com. I'm an online visibility coach for wellness entrepreneurs, but if you are here, you probably already knew that. I'm here today to chat really quickly with you about editorial calendars and planning ahead. The truth is that Unwrap Your Presents came about because I know how hard it is to always be planning ahead and to be making things happen in your business. It can be really easy to let all of the other things that you're doing really get in the way of that planning ahead. And then all of a sudden, it's a month later and you haven't done it. I know I have tried to have the best intentions about it, and I often don't plan, and then the things that I wish were happening don't happen. I'm not writing 2 to 3 blog posts a week. I'm writing a newsletter at the last minute because I've forgotten that it's Tuesday and it needs to go out. You know what I'm talking about, and I know that you do. So, Unwrap Your Presents is here really to help fill that gap and to help encourage you to keep working ahead, plan ahead, and stay visible during the holidays so that when January rolls around, you're not behind and struggling to get things rolling, so that you can get those clients that I know you want. So, editorial calendars. There are 1,000,001 different ways that you can do this, and I've set up a few different ways to help you along the way and make it easier this holiday season. You by no means have to use any of the templates that I have created, but please feel free to if they work for you. Before we get to the actual planning part, we need things to plan, right? If you don't have things to talk about and you don't have ideas ready, you're not going to be able to just paste those into the different spots in your calendar when you need them. So to start off with, I encourage you first to take a look at the blog planning. I think I call it the blog brainstorming handout in the library of materials. Start with that. I don't want to say that I always keep a running list, but I do have if I can find it here, a running list of topics in my notebook. This is my notebook that I use for everything. And anytime that I have an idea, I write it down. Now, along with that, I do try to take about 20 to 30 minutes a week to just sit down and brainstorm. Sometimes it'll go more than a week. Sometimes it's, once a month I will sit down and brainstorm, depending on how much I come up with. But this page you're seeing that goes over to this page, this was all ideas that I came up with in 30 minutes. Okay? So it's not impossible to come up with this much that quickly. Sit down, come up with more ideas than you need. Now, don't sit down and come up with 200 ideas. Don't force yourself to sit for that long, because when you have that much to pick from, it's going to be overwhelming and you're not going to know what to choose. But sit down until you feel like you have, a sufficient number of ideas. I literally write them out as the actual headlines that I would use. But yes, sit down, write them out. When you feel like you have a good list, then move on to the actual calendar, plugging things in piece. I always try to have more, just a few more, but more than I need. And I keep that list around after I pick the materials that I am going to use. I keep the list around of the things that I didn't use, because some days I'll go to write a blog post and I'll decide that that's not really what I want to write about. And so I'll look at my other list and see what I can plug in there and swap around to have, the same level of content, the same great ideas, but something that kind of goes with what I'm feeling at the time. So, how do you actually plug it in then? I sit down and I look at the list and I just see what feels good. If I have a lot of things around all the same topic, great, I'll theme my month around that. If I have things kind of all over the place, I'll try to stagger them throughout so that I don't have everything about Facebook all at the beginning of the month and then everything about finding your dream client or Pinterest or whatever else at the end of the month. So I try to rotate it so that it's a good mix and so that I'm covering different topics, throughout. So, what do you actually use to plan it out? There are a ton of different ways that you can do it, and I'm just going to touch really quickly on all of them. The first way would be to use the spreadsheet that is in the content library. It has spaces for you to enter your blog posts, your newsletters, and your live videos every week. And then it has the days of the week. And at the end, there's a total box. And that's so that you can enter the numbers and see how many total you have throughout the week. So if you're going for 5 blog posts, you'll want to see 5 at the end of that total list. The total isn't really necessary unless you're doing a lot, but I wanted it there so that you have that in case you want to use it. So I would, if I was using the spreadsheet, I would go through and I would just fill in the titles for each thing that I want to do throughout, and then you have your entire month planned. You'll see that there's the entire length of Unwrap Your Presents scheduled in there, and there's some extra spaces before and some extra spaces after. So if you want to get started this week already, go for it. The other digital way that I do it is within my calendar. So I use Sunrise app, which is connected to Google Calendars. And I've actually created a calendar within Google that is called Editorial Calendar. And so what I can do is I can go into each day throughout the month where I want something happening, and I can type in blog and then the title of the blog post, or newsletter and then the subject line for the newsletter, or Periscope and the topic I want to talk about. Then they're all in the calendar, and it's really easy for me to drag and drop and move them around as things need to change. Along that kind of same note is using a big calendar like this. Okay, I keep this on the wall behind me right here, and then I can always see it. So you see there's some writing on here now. These are just kind of some of my major calls and things like that I need to keep track of. But what I do is I take these little half-C size Post-it notes, okay? One color is blog posts, one color is newsletters, and one color is videos. And I write those topics out on each of these. And then I can just stick them to the calendar where they need to go. And if I need to move things around, it's really easy to move things around again. The last way that you can do your editorial planning is to use actual paper worksheets. So I've provided 2 different ones here. I know some people will prefer to just write a to-do list on the days of the week here. And I know other people prefer it to kind of look like a calendar. The nice thing with this one is that you can also plug in your social media at the bottom if you wanted to include that on here, and then you have it all kind of together in one place. So I would just on either of these write in, the things you need to do, or the different titles of things that you're going to be publishing. So again, that was super quick rundown of different ways you can do it. I find that having kind of a hybrid of several of them really. I will put my tasks in Asana so that I know the different pieces of writing and creating graphics and things like that for each of the posts that I need to do. I will sometimes use the big calendar, especially when I'm planning a launch. Using this big calendar for my launch this fall was a huge game changer because I could see from a long ways out what needed to be done. And as things needed to be moved around, it was really easy. And actually what I did was after a post was written or scheduled, I just ripped it off of here. So that I knew that it was done, and it was like a fun little to-do list checking sort of thing, but it was nice to be able to throw those things away as I completed them. Currently, the way that I do it is I just use my list in Asana, but I am going to be moving more towards this, especially because I've now created a paper version for keeping track of my Facebook group participation so that it all comes together. I really do. I try to be digital, but the truth is that I really like putting a pencil or a pen to a piece of paper. I can't have it be as out of sight, out of mind as minimizing a window is on my computer. So play around with it, see what works for you. But the first step to the Unwrap Your Presents process really is to get that plan in place. Because without that plan, you're not going to know what you need to do when you sit down during our writing labs. And if you have it all planned out, you can look at your handy dandy calendar and say, all right, I have to write these 3 blog posts this week and this 1 newsletter. Let's get down to business. I know exactly what I'm writing about already. So that's it for editorial calendars. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the Facebook group or bring them up on our writing lab calls. And I look so forward to hanging out with you. Thanks.